I call it that way because we have so many things to deal with when we are dealing with the kind of students that we have. We call it different ways, actually. We're going to see that later. That we really have to have powerful tools in our bags when we go into those classrooms. So hopefully today you're going to get out of here with some powerful tools, powerful teaching tools to bring into your bilingual or bilingual special education classroom. To start, I would like you to think, first of all, I want to divide you in 4 groups. 1, 2, 3, 4, that's 1. 1, 2, 3, that's 2. 1, 2, 3, that's 3. 1, 2, 3, that's 4. I want you to decide on one object. Tell me one object, inanimated object. By group. So between your group, you're going to decide on one object, and you're going to tell it to me. Any object. Yes? Nothing alive. Has to be an object. Yes?
Chair.
A chair. All right. Tell me what.
Umbrella.
Umbrella. Ooh, I like that one. What about this? Table. And?
A cup.
A cup?
Yes.
All right. Now, using that object that you chose, I want you to complete this sentence. Bilingual education is like blank, and you put that object there, because blank. Okay? Bilingual education is like a chair because whatever. Okay? You have 5 minutes to do that.
Thank you.
And it has to be done by a group. Okay? You have to reach a consensus.
And then which one did you say?
You can take back into your classroom right away and use 2 things. To connect the prior knowledge of your students with the topic that you're discussing or introducing, or to do the opposite. To integrate a unit that you just taught and to get like a general idea, the main idea of what the students catch or didn't catch. Give you an idea of the clarification that they have about that topic. All right? And give you an idea, if you use it before you teach the unit, like we're doing today, is to give you an idea of what kind of experiences related to that topic they are bringing into your classroom. Let's go analogy game. Okay, let me hear your analogy. Who's ready?
Leah.
Okay, let me hear you. Yes, yes, yes.
Bilingual education is like a table because it provides a stable foundation for future academic growth for the ESL and IEP students.
Very good, thank you. Who else is ready? Yes.
Bilingual education is like a car because you can use it any way you want.
Very good, thank you.
The leg that support the education system. And without it, the chair would not stand.
Very good, thank you. Yes. Are you ready?
Bilingual education is like an umbrella because it has many things under it, or it covers many areas.
Very good. Thank you very much. Need to keep in mind, why are we here? Okay, we're going to think about that for a minute. Why is it that we're talking about bilingual education, getting in all this trouble reading this book and all this stuff? Now, I want you to go back to the page I gave you with some thoughts from Pablo Casals. Take a couple of minutes to go through it and discuss with your group if you agree with him or if you don't agree with him. How do you agree with him? How or in which way you disagree with him? Do you know who Pablo Casals is? Pablo Casals is one of the greatest geniuses in music. He's a Spanish, he just died like a few years ago. He was a guy like this, 85 years old, or even more, that's when I met him. That it was the best cello player in the entire world. Wonderful composer, but he was not only a great musician, he was a great educator and a great philosopher. Okay, so these are some of his thoughts about education. Okay, I want you to discuss with your group, how do you agree or disagree with Pablo Casals?
At the last paragraph, that they never teaches children with their probably they are going to teach them about
Remember when I was teaching you how to work in groups, I have one person. This is what this is about.
Oh, yeah.
And when you finish, one person will
Let's go back as a whole group. Hi, do you want to share something with us? Something that you discussed, something that you discovered about?
For example, if we go to the southern state of Mexico, we call it Chiapas, and if we go and teach the indigenous people down there, that means as quote-unquote educated people, we go and teach them, probably 99% of chance we will teach them about Mozart, Vivaldi, Paris, capital of France, Michelangelo, without teaching them their culture and their surroundings. I think that Pablo wants to say that the first thing that we have to do in education is to teach the child its surroundings, its immediate surroundings.
And especially what about his surroundings?
Himself?
Himself. What about himself? What? Self-esteem. Yes, very good. And his culture, his identity, and to really grab that as something very, very dear and very valuable. How many of you agree with that?
I agree.
Okay, keep that in mind, okay? Because sometimes we have a vision, or we have a mission statement that we say we have, but when we go into practice, it's very difficult to put our mission or our vision of the ideal that we think we should be doing into practice. So sometimes it's very helpful to keep going back into that vision, into that mission of the ideal, and check ourselves with it. Because, okay, we're never going to get to that idea but progress is very important, not perfection. Now, he says something that I find very important too. He says that every child is a what? a marble. How many of you believe that every child is a marble? How many of you agree with that? And a lot of educators will say, yes, every child is unique, that's a special ed, jingle. Every child is unique, every child has potential. So I want you to think about that when we are approaching what bilingual education is and what bilingual special education is, or should be, okay, or can be, okay, depending on who, on us, teachers, all right? Now, when we're talking about bilingual education today, I want you to keep your mind too on why are we doing this. You saw this before, no? We have in our city 150,000 LEP students. What is the meaning of LEP? Limited English proficient. Okay, and how do we know that a child is limited English proficient in this city?
Okay, we give them an assessment test.
What is the name of that test? All right, and what has to happen with that lab test in order to call that child LEP?
He has to 49.
Above 40.
Below 40.
Or 40 or below. Okay, very good, very good. Now, I want to challenge you today to think about this. We need this title. We need this in our city because it depends on this title that our children are receiving the services that they need. This is a title used for entitlement, okay, and it's a legal term. But I want you to expand the meaning of that title that we give our students and not think of them just as limited English proficient. You can think about them as, they call them in one of the books that we're going to discuss today as SAE, students acquiring English, or we can call them to PEP, potentially English proficient. These are other ways to call the students that we find in the literature to refer to them. And I think you know this one. Let's see, CLD. What's CLD? Culturally, linguistically diverse. And if we add the E at the end, what's that?
Exception.
Very good. So culturally, linguistically diverse, exceptional students. And what's the meaning of exceptional? Very good. That have special need. And in our city, exceptional means that it's in need of receiving the special education services. Very good. All right. So I know you went through this too. And I want to challenge you from now on in this presentation, instead of thinking about the students as the triple threat students that may be dealing with a handicapped condition, with limited English proficiency, and a lower socioeconomic status. 90% of the LEP children that we have from 80 to 90% are coming into our classroom from a lower socioeconomic status. Okay? But you have to keep this in mind. But I want you to put your focus on, instead of on the triple threats, I want you to think of them as students having 3 strengths to build on. Instead of looking at them as handicapped, I want you to focus, because you cannot teach the handicap, can you? But you can read their human learning potential and get from them what they can give, and all of them can learn. It doesn't matter, and I've been working with all kinds of students through the city. It doesn't matter what kind of disability they have, of the degree of their disability, or their stage of language acquisition in their native or their second language. All students can learn, okay? And instead of looking at their limited English proficiency, and instead of looking at their problems with the culture they're confronting, I want you to look at those 2 big strengths that our students are bringing to our classrooms. Their native language skills and the unique culture. And these are tools. Instead of seeing this as problems, I'm going to challenge you today and invite you to look at this as tools and strengths you can take and build on, okay? And that, I think, is the philosophical base of any bilingual program, okay? Now, there's a bilingual teacher in Texas who said this: teachers must be able to reach beyond their own world to touch that of their students and assist students to do the same. To do this, we must listen to their stories and hear who they are. We must learn to listen and listen to learn. I want you to discuss with your group your reactions to the words of Cynthia Chambers for 1 moment. What do you think about that? Okay, let's come back as a whole group now, and let's hear some of your comments. Any volunteers? Not everybody at the same time. Yes.
I could say that each child has something to bring in class into the world that the teacher doesn't know. And then if the teacher asks the student, the teacher will know what's going on, what impact that student might do when give to the class and to the world.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes?
I think what she's trying to say is that in order for the teacher to be effective, the teacher should try to listen to what children have to bring to the class, what their input is, so they can use that input in order to teach them what his or her points of views are, so they somehow meet at a point where she can use their terms and they can accept and learn her terms, so then it comes to one.
Very good. Thank you very much. Yes.
I like the last part where it said we must learn to listen to learn. Because many of us here, we don't listen. And many times the children come in, children have a lot to say. And because sometimes they have a handicap, they're not clear in speaking, the teachers push them aside. There we have not learned, we have not listened to learn what this child is all about. As a person brought up back there, if we listen and learn what this child is all about, we may find the easy way to reach this child and to teach them what, at least some of the things that they would need to know to get them started.
Thank you very much. Yes.
Well, like the teachers must be able to reach beyond their own world. I believe that being a teacher, first of all, you should know your own self. You should do a lot of practice, like go deep inside for you to know who you are in order to be able to understand. So you can give. If you don't have something, you cannot give it.
Very good, and I agree with you 100%. 100%. And it's teaching culturally and linguistically diverse children, and especially, is a lifelong learning process. I haven't become the teacher that I would like to be, but I can say that I'm much better at it than when I started in 1986, carrying bags and crying every day because I didn't know what to do with that child that was breaking my bulletin boards every day because he was emotionally disturbed. I had nights that I couldn't sleep thinking about Rafael Gonzalez that didn't speak a word for a whole year in my class, but only experience and learning and sharing with other teachers and listening to students and their parents. You know, little by little, you become more competent in what to do. Yes.
How, you say you were working with emotionally disturbed.
Yes.
How do you listen to a child that's emotionally disturbed, the behavior, but doesn't speak? How do you listen to such a person in order for you to be able to reach them?
Every behavior is language. I learned that by experience. Every behavior that the child brings into the classroom is telling you something.
So if you
Some of them are expressing anger. Some of them are asking for help. Some of them don't have the social skills that are required to behave in another way. Some of them are going through a very, very stressful acculturation process, figuring this new world that is around them, where they feel strangers, that they don't understand what's going on, and sometimes the behavior is just an expression of all that stress and frustration. Okay? Sometimes there are other kinds of things. Sometimes there are physical impairments, you know. So I would say that just experience and support from other professionals help you to learn this language. You know, and every child has their own language. You know, even when they speak Spanish, they express themselves differently, and each one of them is unique. So it's just a willingness to listen, I would say, and support from other professionals and information, getting information. All right. Now, when we're thinking about culturally and linguistically diverse exceptional students, now we're going to see that the learning needs of this population, this kind of students, are going to be defined by three big factors. All right? These are the three broad factors. Okay, and each one of these factors have 50,000 factors in it. Okay, but it's going to depend on their language abilities. And when I say language abilities, I'm referring to the first language. Are they literate? Are they competent orally, you know, socially? What is their proficiency in their first language? And the same in the second language. What are the skills that he's bringing in the second language? Culture. What is the cultural background of the student? What is the experience, educational background of the students, etc. And their disability or their exceptionality. And when I talk about disability, I'm talking about two things. I'm talking about what kind of disability, the nature of the disability. Is it a sensorial disability? Is he blind, deaf, or whatever? Is it a cognitive disability, a learning disability, or a mental retardation, whatever? Is it an emotional disturbance? Is it whatever it is? Is it a multiple handicap student? Is it? And then I want you to think about the extent of the disability, because that's very important. We don't reach students that are mildly disabled in the same way we reach students that are severely disabled. Okay? For example, in our city, the mildly disabled students go often to programs that are very similar to regular education, and where teachers adapt their curriculum, their regular curriculum that everybody is having in the regular classes, and adapt it to their learning rate, to their ability level, etc. But basically, we use the same curriculum. And when we are approaching language skills, we are guiding them to the same kind of skills that the general education students are having, okay, are receiving. When we're talking about severely or moderately severe handicap conditions, then it's a whole different story, okay? Then they receive a specialized curriculum that is designed to help these students that are severely handicapped to develop survival skills that they will need to function as an individual, independent human being. according to their potential, okay? So it's not the same story, okay? So keep those three in mind. And there's no way, and I want you to see this very clearly, that you're going to address the language skills of the students, or you're going to address the disability if you don't address their culture. There's no way you can teach culture or address the culture if you're not addressing the language needs of the students and disability. The interaction between these three factors is very dynamic, okay? Very dynamic. So I want you to keep that in mind. You cannot address one of these factors if you're not addressing the other two, all right? Now, so one of the ways to address all the needs that the student bring into a classroom is called bilingual education, okay? What is bilingual education? What is bilingual education? Someone tell me.
It's the use of the native language of the child with along English in the program you teach.
So you're talking about native language and what else?
The whole culture.
You're talking about culture. What else? Cultural aspect. What else you said?
And you teach the child English along with
And the second language in this case, what? English. If we don't have two languages, not bilingual, okay? So I want you to be very clear because sometimes we think that the kids we're giving them bilingual education and we're not. If there's a class that teaches every subject in their native language only, that's not a bilingual program. Okay?
along with English.
Along with English. The way they do it, and we're going to see, because the topic of this tonight is to discuss different models of bilingual education. But you have to have these elements, okay, these components. There are 4 components in bilingual, or there must be, or there should be 4 components in every bilingual program. And what you're going to see is that, oh my God, but if this teacher is not teaching this, and this teacher is, the ideal is not always the reality. And sometimes we say, oh, this bilingual program doesn't work, and the kids are not learning. But when we look into it, we see a lot of reasons why. Because there are some components of an efficient bilingual program that are not in those classrooms. Okay? So, the first one will be what? The native language development. It's instruction in the native language, okay? In the native language, for the native language. For what I say that is to teach, like for example, if you're teaching Spanish, it's teaching reading, speaking, writing, and listening skills in that native language. So the students will be what? Literate in that native language. Developing literacy skills in the 4 areas of language arts. Okay, that is listening, writing, speaking, and reading. All right. They're not in order, what that is it. And then second, content area instruction. And content area instruction is given in both languages. Okay? And you're going to see there are a lot of different ways to do it, but a popular way to do it is that you introduce the new concepts in the native language, the skills that they don't have developed, you are introduced in the native language, and they are also transferred to English using what we call ESL. What's ESL?
English
Strategies. So they can transfer those skills that they have acquired, math and science and social studies, into the English. Okay? Now, and then English as a second language is an essential component of every bilingual program. And what that means is that it's going to be a developmental language program, okay, that includes language and area and content area instruction that include the 4 what? Skills of language, listening, speaking, reading, and writing. And it uses a specialized methodology to make that language comprehensible to the student. So you're going to have a whole series of sessions just talking about English as a second language acquisition. The 4th that have to be there, okay, is multicultural education. And when we're talking about multicultural education, we're talking about 4 different things, okay? It's not just the inclusion of the culture of the students. That's part of it. That should be the first step, but that's not all. Okay, it's introducing the cultural context of the student in your teaching, in all your teaching, in every subject area, and then exposure to other cultures, and then instruction in the value of your own culture, building their self-esteem, building their identity sense, building a strong self in the student, and at the same time, and it should be there, it's not a multicultural education, introducing the acceptance and value of diverse cultures, the acceptance and respect for diversity. And especially in a city like ours, where we have people around us from every culture and every linguistic background that you can imagine, there's 100 different languages spoken in our school by students, okay? More than 100. So these are the 4 components of a bilingual education program. Now, the way these 4 components is presented in bilingual programs is very varied, okay? Varies a lot from program to program, from school to school, from state to state, from classroom to classroom, okay? Now, Baca and Cervantes, okay, those are the authors of your book, present different lists, and you have that in your book. That's what I brought you something different that you have there. Baca and Cervantes, and this is taken from there, presents different lists of different kinds of models. And it's different, like we say in Spanish, diferente nombre para con diferente dulce con el mismo palito. It's the same candy with a different stick, okay? But these are the 4 major kind of models or schools of bilingual education. The first one is called the transitional program. And in our city, and in almost every state in the United States, this is the official kind of program. And transitional means exactly that is transitional. That is not something that is going to stay. It's the use of the native language and the native culture to build the students' cognitive skills and language skills in English until they are ready to leave to a monolingual setting. And the time of duration is very varied from state to state, district to district, etc. In our state, it's a 3-year program in general education. And if the child at 3 years after hasn't developed enough English to pass the what? The lab, and is still below 40, then the child has the opportunity to stay 3 more years, all right? And that's a whole different story. But it's a transitional program because it's not there to stay, you know? The child is not there to stay the whole time, the whole school life, okay? Just until he's ready to function in an English only environment, all right? Maintenance program is the opposite because it sees and it endorses and it tries to develop the value of both languages, of what we call biliteracy or bilingualism. So it is that they endorse literacy in both languages. So what that means is that it's encouraging the students to be fluent in both languages in all ways. Cognitive skills, reading, writing, etc. And content area in both languages. So usually those programs are considered like an enrichment program by the state. They're not mandated because what is mandated is what? Transitional, but the state allows any district that wants to do this kind of program as an enrichment program, they allow that, okay? So in this case, the student can stay, and it's different in every school, in every district, etc. longer periods of time, sometimes the whole elementary school, sometimes the whole school life of a student, learning in two languages, okay? And giving the same value to both languages. Now, restoration program is to restore the language, the native language that a lot of students have lost in their process of assimilation. What is assimilation? Do you know? Huh? What is assimilation? Absorbing what?
The culture.
All right, but there's a difference, and I want you to be very concerned about this. There's a big difference between assimilation, and acculturation. What's that difference? Do you know? Yes.
Acculturation, that means you're trying to take other people's culture.
Uh-huh.
And assimilation, you're trying to assimilate, like you're trying to copy how people do things.
Okay. What? Let me see here.
Assimilation is trying to adapt to a new culture and using those new things as your culture. Acculturation is adding just another culture to your
Okay.
own culture.
Okay. The clue is this. In assimilation, you leave what you have to become something else. You're not longer Puerto Rican. Let's put that to become American, what they call an American. And the assumption is that I need to do this to be okay. And that becoming American, and I'm going to put it like this, American is better than what I am. That's the famous, and I know you went through it, the melting pot and all that. Acculturation means that I'm integrating new elements from this new culture into the culture that I have. So it's as you very well said, an addition, an inclusive kind of point of view instead of an exclusive, that is assimilation. Now, a lot of research is going to say that assimilation has very, very detrimental effects in the self-esteem of students, in the self-esteem of adults, and in the identity sense of students. Puerto Rican will be always a Puerto Rican. Even if he doesn't want it, he's going to have the mancha plátano, the plantain stain in his personality and who he is. All right? It doesn't matter how American he becomes, he will always have the plantain stain. And assimilation brings this, there's a lot of negative kind of thing because they're saying that being something is better than being the other thing. All right? Now, acculturation gives you this opportunity to choose what is it that I want to have from this culture. Okay? And I can incorporate it in my personality, in my life, without having to leave what I endure, okay? What I have very dear to me, all right? Now, and enrichment programs. So the restoration programs try to restore this in helping students to become having more self-esteem or having better relationship with their parents or rescuing who they are, okay? And there's a lot of programs that are just for that, all right? Now, enrichment programs. And this is a very nice kind of, this is what they call it sometimes a two-way program, where students that are monolingual, okay, are introduced to bilingual programs just to teach them a new language and culture. In a lot of our schools, we have what we call comprehensive two-way bilingual programs, where Spanish-speaking students with monolingual students, English students, are together in a classroom, and they learn Spanish and English together. to become fluent. It's like a maintenance program, but in this case you have students that have no other skills in another language, just in English, learning the other language. Okay? So that's one way of seeing different models of bilingual education. Now, in your packages you have this other version, okay? And it's very similar, but I want you to look at these two things. In the transitional bilingual program, we have what is called early exit model or late exit model. Early exit means what? That they get out early, that's it. So after a couple of years, 1, 2, or 3 years, they are taken out of the program. And in a late exit, it means that they stay like up to 6 years, okay, in the transitional program, okay? Maintenance program would be that all their schooling will be given in both languages, remembering that they're going to give equal importance to both language, like literacy skills. Now, I'm going to talk to you about a kind of controversial model of bilingual education. And I say controversial because this is one of the hottest topics when we discuss bilingual education, is immersion programs. All right? Actually, immersion programs, what they say is that almost all instruction is given in English, using English as a second language acquisition strategies. Okay? It's not that you put them in there with no support, okay? Like in a regular classroom, no. It's a teacher that is specialized in English as a second language strategies, okay? Now, and they teach from 90% to 80% in English and use just the Spanish or the native language to clarify certain skills or certain topics to the students. All right? That's an immersion program. Now, that program is out of compliance in our state. Okay? When a student is LEP, we don't have these kind of programs in our city. We have other kinds of programs that are similar. But what is offered to the student has the right to receive bilingual education. And it's bilingual education is a kind of a transitional program or kind of a maintenance program where both languages are used for instruction. Okay? Now, a bilingual immersion program is very similar to the maintenance program. So you see, there are different ways to call the same thing, all right? A two-way, we talk about that, and they include this because they want to make something very clear. And I want you to have this very clear too, all right? Look, even the immersion strategy have a 10% of native language use. So they can get away with saying that that's a bilingual program, no? And the research is saying more and more that this kind of program will not address the needs of culturally linguistically diverse students because of the cultural and linguistic factor that is missing in somehow, all right? Now, it's not enough, okay? Now, an English as a second language strategy or model is not a bilingual program. It's exactly that, English as a second language, that's it. They give special support to students, yes, in a lot of ways. But it's not a bilingual program because there's not another language used. Okay? So yes, it is designed to develop English skills in students. But that's it. There's no support, there's no bilingual support. Okay? Now, we saw now, any questions? And I know I'm giving you a lot of information. Yes?
When do you know what to use for one class and what not to use?
Okay.
How do you choose that?
In this city, they'll tell you. You know? They'll tell you. That's it. Now, in our rooms, in our city, we mostly see transitional. Remember that I said that's what the state mandates, and that's the regulation. Okay, that's what gets you in compliance with the law. Okay, that you're providing certain time in Spanish and certain time in English. You are building literacy in Spanish or the native language. Okay, while the student acquire English, so they will learn the cognitive skills they need at the same time that they're acquiring English. No? Now, the maintenance programs, that is the one who can go the whole school life and that will focus on building biliteracy, on building bilingualism, because there's a big difference. The transitional program is there to build what? English skills and cognitive skills, not bilingualism. They are using the native language as the mean to develop cognitive skills and English, not to build bilingualism. All right? That happens, yes, but that's not the goal. The goal of a maintenance program or an enrichment program or a two-way program is to develop bilingualism and biliteracy in students, because that's a big value. All right? That's the difference between one and another. In our schools, you will be told if this is a maintenance program or if this is a transitional program, because the kind of strategy you're going to use is different. Now, our transitional programs, according to the law, can have from 20% to 80% of native language use. All right?
Okay, but then,
For English.
but then the
So at least,
what's wrong with that?
yes and no. I'm going to explain you why. All right? And be very clear, because this will allow you to have less frustration when you get into the classroom. 20%, if you're using just 20% of or the native language, is because you have a group of students that is almost ready to go into monolingual classes. That their language, English skills are very strong. They're almost ready to go into monolingual classes. When you have new arrivals, students that are acquiring English now for the first time, you start where? Near the 80. Now, you're going to see the majority of our classes that have a 40-60%. Usually 2 periods of English as a second language. Okay, one is directly teaching English as a second language, and the other one is one of the content area where the students are more advanced or whatever, they have more skill, is taught in English. And then all the rest of the time is Spanish or their native language. All right? As the students, and this is it in a transitional program, as the students acquire more and more English, the native language is what? Decreasing. English is increasing, Spanish or the native language is decreasing. In a maintenance program, they are 50-50. All right? Because you're building both. In an immersion program is 10, 90, and probably you want to get them from 99, 0. You know? That's the kind of immersion program. All right? Yes.
You were talking about the transitional maintenance restoration program. There's something called now Afrocentric curriculum.
All right. Remember that we said restoration?
Yeah, is it the same?
That's related. If you include, listen, there's a difference between ethnocentric, because that can be just multicultural programs, restoring their cultural background without talking about the linguistic background. If they're an Afrocentric or a Caribbean ethnicity program where the students are taught in a very kind of Haitian environment and the instruction is in Haitian Creole and English, then we can call that a restoration bilingual program. There are some restoration programs, they call it restoration programs, that are just addressing cultural issues, okay? So it depends if they're linguistic issues or not. All right, now, I want you to look at the other element, because I know some of you are going into bilingual, special education. What the heck is that? Okay. All right. Now, a bilingual, okay, first of all, what's special education? What's special education? What's special ed? What's that?
Something other than general education.
Yes,
Yeah, but that can be remedial education too. So what is gonna make special education special?
Uh,
Students with special needs.
Okay, dealing with students with special needs. But that's a remedial program too.
Using different approaches to teach these children's needs.
And when you say special needs, what is that? There's something that has to be there.
The students' unique needs. It has to be a specific need.
What kind of students? Here we have exceptionality. Not all of them are handicapped. You know that a gifted program is specialized. Okay, so I will I guide you to use exceptionality when you're talking about special ed in general, because gifted students are definitely not handicapped, in a lot of ways. Okay? They may be, but they can be, but they're not usually. Okay? Now, bilingual special education is a program that is going to provide instruction to enhance the student cognitive, academic, and social abilities to her fullest potential. That's the special ed component right there. That's special education. You take a student that have special needs because of their exceptionality. Okay, that's why. Not because they don't have enough education, not because they're poor, not because they have an exceptionality. Okay? And you design a special program to develop their cognitive, social, and what? And academic skills to the fullest of their potential. Okay? And it's a program specifically designed for one child. It's an individualized program. Each child has what we call a what?
IEP.
And what is an IEP?
Individualized educational program.
Okay, so a program is designed especially for one child, all right? Now, the bilingual component here would be then that a bilingual special education program provides instruction through the student's primary language while providing extensive opportunities for acquiring English as a second language. That's the bilingual component. And then reflects the importance of the cultural context and instructional setting in which learning occurs. So we have the multicultural component. So a bilingual special ed program will have what? The bilingual component, the multicultural component, and the specialized instruction component. All right? Any questions? Now, let's combine this. Bilingual special education. The special education goal, the goal for special education programs is to develop the conceptual, academic, and social abilities to the fullest potential. We saw that already, no? And then the other side is the bilingual education goals. Is to develop high levels of English language proficiency, appropriate levels of cognitive academic achievement, sufficient levels of primary language development, and adequate psychological and cultural adjustment. We put those together and we get the goal for what? For bilingual special ed. That will be a bilingual special education program would provide, listen to this, a special instruction to enhance the cognitive, academic, and social abilities of the bilingual exceptional student to the child's fullest potential. All right? That's the what? The special education component. Instruction is provided through the primary language while providing opportunities for learning English. And the importance of the cultural context and instructional setting in which learning occurs should also be reflected. So you have what? Exactly, the multicultural component. So a bilingual special education is exactly that. A special education program that is what? Bilingual and multicultural. All right? And listen to this, I'm not saying bicultural. A lot of programs and a lot of authors will call it, and a lot of experts will call it bilingual, bicultural. I don't think, well, that's my opinion. That's Laura Sayed speaking here. And other people, back me up, like Collier and Baca sometimes because he's in the bilingual, bicultural. But I think that in a city like ours, every program needs to be multicultural, all right? And it's just like ours. Now, so, going back to that, how will an effective bilingual multicultural special education program will look like? All right. It's a program that's going to respond to students' exceptionality. What is exceptionality?
Students need special needs.
Special needs, very good. Okay, it's either a disability or they're very special because they're gifted, okay? Responds to students' linguistic characteristic. And when I say linguistic characteristics, what's that?
The language.
What kind of language? Native language and? Very good. They're like this. So, responds to students' socio-cultural background. What's that? Their culture, and what else is that? And the other part, socio, what that means? Okay, that's another factor that we have to take into consideration. It's going to respond to students' cognitive learning style. What's that? Exactly. How do they learn? What is their way to approach learning, and what's the way for them to receive learning? And this is very, and research is telling us more and more that it's very strongly culturally determined. Different cultures approach learning in different ways. Okay? Now, select effective teaching, and this is very important, and this is where we have to put our sweat, okay, in a lot of time. Select effective teaching strategies and instructional materials. Special education students will need to have special kinds of materials to respond to everything else that we just said, all right? Now, and then there will be programs that will encourage parental and community involvement, where the parent is a what? Is a partner. The parent as a partner in this thing that we call bilingual special education. All right? And there are formal ways and informal ways where parents become involved. Parents need to be involved in a very formal way. We call what? IEP. How?
They have to sign for it. They have to agree.
Is that it? They have to sign it?
They have to
That's it? They have to read it and sign it? And agree? That's it? No way. They have
To
to
be
agree.
explained if they want.
Not only that, by law. And listen to this. The law says that parents should be included in the planning and the decision-making of the process in developing an IEP. And that's something that doesn't happen
Sure, that's
a
what
lot.
that's what the law said, but, I mean, not many parents are called to make the IEP.
And not many teachers are open and are prepared, or unfortunately, to guide parents to, or support parents in become more actively involved in the planning and in the decision-making of the students, the children's education.
When the child, I'm not sure, when the child is being evaluated, you get the school-based support team. The parent has to be present when the child
Yes.
is evaluated. So is it at that point that they should offer their input, or
In
or
every
afterwards, or
IEP, okay?
when the IEP has already been written out?
When you are doing an annual review, all right?
It starts with the referral. Before a child is referred, okay, the parents have to be told that this child needs to be referred to special education. And there's something now that we're looking into that's called the pre-referral status, which is before referring a child, what can we do to help this child in order to avoid this child going to special ed? The parent should be included in all that. If it comes to the point that a child does have to be referred, the parent has to give informed consent. And informed consent is that the parent is sat on the chair and tell you, look, this, that, and that is a problem with your child. We need to evaluate your child, to observe your child, and then come up with a recommendation of what to do with your child. At that point, then the parent will say yes or no. The parent still has the option to say yes or no. And that is called informed consent.
No,
When
but-
the parent signs, then the social worker takes an intake. The parent says from the time that child was conceived until the time we're seeing it, all and everything that happened that she or she can remember. At the same time, that child is being seen by the psychologist and the social worker. And the educational evaluator, who are going to test the academic level of the child, okay? By the time all this is complete, then they have what they call an EPC or a CSE review. When all these clinicians, after testing or assessing the child and have the report and meet together, they come to a consensus. This child should go into Ms. 1, or Ms. 2, whatever. Then the parent is supposed to be called to meeting at which point all of that is discussed with the parent. So you see, it's a continuous thing. It's not your child is going into special ed sign here, and then here's the IEP. Take him to that school and that classroom. No.
And
Parent has to be included at
What I'm
every
trying to.
And it goes to a step further. Every year you have what is called an annual review, that the teacher reviews the IEP and updates it. Looks at the goals, the goal was accomplished, we can move the child, further. This goal was not accomplished, we have to adapt it, we have to continue. The parent should be participating with the teacher in the writing and in the development of that IEP. Unfortunately, what we get in a lot of schools is that you have the IEP, you read it to the parent, you tell him why you're going to do this, and they sign. But what I used to do after I learned, not the first year, I'm going to be very honest, as I became more, aware of those things, I did come to the parents' conference with a plan, but I never wrote it in the forms until I sat with them. Do you agree with this? What do you think I can? And let me tell you something. The more I did it, the more I saw how much the parents had to give to their students' education. They gave me tricks on how to manage their behavior. They told me what kind of reinforcement to use with them or what to avoid with them. They clarified to me a lot of things. For example, let me give you one example. I had one day my birthday party in the classroom. It was my first bilingual class, special ed, emotionally disturbed student from 4th to 6th grade. So imagine 13 kids with emotional disturbances, pre-adolescents, and bilingual, limited English proficient. All right? So here I am, this new teacher, learning about the students. I'm learning what teaching was and what special education was and all this. It was a process. Okay? Now, so I have my birthday party, and I have 4 Mexican students. And I speak Spanish, they speak Spanish. All right? So here I am cutting my birthday cake. I was so happy. This mother, they planned this by themselves. Okay, giving me the surprise for my birthday. So here I am. I'm cutting my birthday cake and giving it to the students. And I tell this student, 13 years old, in Spanish, do you want a piece of my bizcocho? Bizcocho in Puerto Rico, my cultural background means birthday cake. I said it to him very openly, do you want a piece of my bizcocho? You're laughing, you know what bizcocho means. Now, this student became totally red. The whole class went bizarre. I didn't know what was going on. This student ran out of the room. I have the mother of the student in the classroom, all right? So it was a difficult situation. It was the mother of that child that came to me and said, laughing, she took it in a very nice way. I don't think you realize what you just told me. I said, I don't think so. So she told me, in Mexico, bizcocho means the sexual organ, female sexual organ. So I literally offered this child a piece of, right? So, I learned a lot from that parent that year about Mexican culture, how to approach them, how to treat them, how to reinforce them, how to use more cooperative game, because she told me, in our country we do things together. That was the way for her to say that Mexican students prefer cooperative learning situations. So I learned a lot from parents. And if you allow them, not all parents will become as involved as she did. But if you allow the parents to become as involved as they can, there's a lot to learn, especially in the cultural and social aspects, okay? In how to relate to them and how to relate your curriculum to the student's culture, all right? Any other questions? Yeah.
So in order to avoid such an embarrassing situation when you have a multilingual class, how do you
Avoid, I don't think I would be able to avoid it because today is that word, tomorrow is another that I didn't hear. Today is my Mexican students, tomorrow is my Dominican student, then is my Honduran student.
So how did you
All right,
resolve it with the
okay.
students?
This is what I was going to say. More than avoid it, because I am myself, and I am coming with my baggage, with my cultural background, with my values. So I'm going to meter la pata, we say in Spanish. I'm going to put my feet into the mud sometimes. But what I learned was that I can learn, and my student could learn from my mistakes and their mistakes. What we did was the next day, because it was impossible, he was very upset. So I have to give him time to what? Cool off. So, and then the next day we have what we call class meeting, or what we call circles, magic circles. And we had a session about words that have different meanings in different countries, and we laughed. And they have a chance to get all that out, and they understood that I didn't want to offer him that I was coming from another place, and I made clear to them that I will make this mistake again. And I needed them to teach me, all right? And they said words that I sometimes I have to say, they're not saying that word because of this, they're saying it because in their country it means this. Because the same thing happens from the other side. Multicultural education and bilingual education is meeting students both ways. And you have to be honest because they feel when you are not. When you're funny, they feel it. Okay? And I think I discovered that they could learn more from my mistakes if I just, or their mistake, if I just open with them and be honest. My relationship with the student was very strong after that, even when I had such a wonderful start with them. These students was illiterate, they couldn't read a letter. When it came to my classroom, they didn't know a word of English. After 4 years in my classroom, he's today in a general education high school, not in special ed anymore, and he's going to graduate this year, okay, and going to college, okay? So not every story, not every child have the same success story. But all my students, I can say with a lot of pride, that came out of my room with more skills than when they came in. And that's your job as special educator, as a bilingual educator. And the last year I was teaching, they got a prize. And I say this because not for me, it's for them too, and their parents. We got recognized in the district as the best special education class. The first time that a bilingual class got that recognition, but in special education. So it's to tell you that yes, there's a lot of mistakes that you commit. There's a lot of growing experiences, but there are a lot of successes too. Okay? Now, okay. Another thing that we have to take into consideration is, remember that I talk about language, disability, and culture, and the way they interact? Sometimes, unfortunately, our students that are going through a very normal process of learning a second language, English, normal stages of second language acquisition, or normal stages of acculturation. Remember that I said acculturation is the process of acquiring elements from the new culture and integrating it into your culture and learning how to behave successfully and be socially accepted in this new culture. That's a very difficult process. Okay? As Janet shared with you, I just married 6 months ago, and my husband is Palestinian. Okay, my husband is from Jordan, he's Palestinian. So, he's Muslim, I'm Catholic. He is Arab, I'm Latin. He speaks Arabic is his first language. Spanish is my first language. So we are in an acculturation process, believe me. All right? And it has been very difficult for me when I go into the Palestinian world, okay, when he's surrounded by his friends or his family, to learn how to behave and how to be socially correct.
Does he accept your
Yes, 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 yes. It's both ways. When he goes into my family, it's the same story to him. Okay? For example, let me give you one of the anecdotes. And this happens in our classroom every day. All right? Here I am, second date, or third day, I'm sorry, with my husband, my
Husband to be.
my husband to be at that time. All right? So I am going to be introduced to the Palestinian guys, and I was so excited. I was very nervous. Okay? To the Palestinian guy, we were going to go to one of these meetings discussing the peace process. All right? Very intellectual place and all that stuff. So here is he discussing something about Israel points of view and all this fantastic interaction of ideas and stuff like that. So I was so agreeable with him that I went like this to him, saying to him, I agree and I support what you're saying. He turned completely red. I said, uh-oh. And I was like, his friends started laughing. You know, everybody knew I was American, so they knew I didn't mean it. But you know what this means for their culture? Do you know?
No.
Do you know?
Oh, well, in my country is something bad too. Guatemala.
What means in your country?
Guatemala is well, it's
No,
equal to the
go ahead.
middle finger.
Yes, it means literally up yours, all right? So here,
Oh my God.
up yours. So it was embarrassing, and I learned that day that this is not the correct way to express agreement in a Palestinian situation, all right?
And how is
I guess
it?
if you met.
I don't know, Jess. You know, I'm still traumatized. No. But you know, and that happens in our classroom. One day I was sitting I taught resource room ESL. Okay? So it was an experiment in our district too, for students that didn't have bilingual services. I was a specialist in ESL, and I was in special ed, so we tried to provide resource room services in using ESL methodology. And I have two Yemeni students. They're Arab. A very traditional Arab, a Muslim country. All right? Jordan is much more Western-like than Yemen. All right? So here I have two students, teenagers, males, just arrived from Yemen. They had a lot of problems, and I have a lot of problems acculturating to each other. Why? First of all, I was a female, and they don't have female teachers, and they don't have to listen to females at 13 years old because they're becoming males, men. All right. So the women have a place in society, and men have a place. That is very different to this assertive American woman, So that was the first. Second, they don't know a word in English, and they were very angry of being in this country. So they have that kind of situation at the same time. Second, I was wearing jeans and sneakers because I was in the 5th floor and I taught Miss too, emotionally stirred kids. And you learn that when you teach in that situation, you don't wear heels,
Very ready to run.
Exactly. So they have a lot of difficulties, not to focus on my gender, but because of the school environment. Because education in their country is very formal. There's a distance between the teacher and the student. The students participate when they are addressed to by name, only then, and they better know the answer, or there's a ruler that can be used and should be used, because teachers are encouraged to that's the kind of discipline they're used to. So they were having a lot of difficulties. So here I am, second day, I'm teaching these students, okay? And I sit and I cross my leg like this, all right? I'm reading a big book, I'm having a literature connection class, and I sit like this. And one of the students, I said something in Arabic and ran out of the room. I didn't know what was going on at all. I called the house, I make the first mistake. Listen, this is what my acculturation story. No, really, I've made the fake mistake. I talked to the mother, not to the father. I was supposed to address the father. Second, I was calling. I'm not supposed to call. A man is supposed to call. All right? To talk to the man. You know, I didn't know. So the parent came to school and refused to sit with me and discuss the child's behavior. All right?
Why should it be?
Because in his culture, and I'm gonna let you I'm learning something now. At that time, I thought he was disrespecting me because he thought I was less than him. Now I understand that's not his intention. In his culture, he was demonstrating respect to me because I was a not known woman, and if he addressed me and he didn't know me, he was considering me a low or loose woman. So it's a sign of respect not to address an unknown woman. All right? It's a sign of respect. By that time, I was like this, really in a battle with my own cultural background and my own bias against Arabs because I didn't know them. So I have this sensational kind of knowledge about the culture. I saw the movie Not Without My Daughter, and that's the kind of understanding I have of the culture. All right? Years later, I married one. But let me tell you, it was a process of getting to know the students. And these students gave me so many gifts in all these struggles that I am a much more culturally competent person because of the process I went through with the students. Now, how did we solve this problem? Okay, and this is an example I want you to look at as an alternative. All right, we have to meet with this parent. So I decided, and let me tell you, I had a lot of problems with this because I was with my own assertive American woman pride and all that stuff in the middle. But I'm going to acknowledge it now today very honestly. Okay? Now, what we did was that the assistant principal came and met with us. So the parent will talk to the assistant principal, I will talk to the assistant principal, and the assistant principal will repeat the same thing to the parent and all that. And that way, well, let me tell you something. I never had any problems with that child again. Because when the parent understood that the student was having problems and his grade and his progress was in danger, and his behavior was interpreted as disrespectful in the school, because education and respect is so highly valued in that culture, I don't know what he did, but I never had one more problem with that child in the classroom. All right? So I solved my problem. Second, as the child started to learn more English, we had a lot of conversations, clarifying, and this is what we call cultural value clarification. When I said it, I meant this, I didn't mean this, I know in your culture you mean this, but in my culture it meant this. And that process helped him and helped me to be more competent too. Now, I remember that 2 years after, I was 2 years with these two kids. When they were leaving to a junior high school, this parent that would not talk to me 2 years before brought me a whole bowl of stuffed grape leaves. All right? And told me, thank you. And he told the assistant principal, if I ever embarrass or make your teacher, okay, remember my name, your teacher uncomfortable, I'm very sorry. 2 years after. All right? So it is a process of meeting your students midway. Not letting, you cannot going to assimilate to them either. You're going to meet them as who you are with your baggage, meeting their baggage. Exactly. Okay? Now, story of my life. Now, we're not gonna have enough time to do what I wanted to do, but there are two things that I want to do. All right? I think this is one of the crucial aspects. We can understand the theory, and we can agree with all the values and all this stuff, but if we don't do this, everything is theoretical and nothing gets done. Really, nothing gets done. And selecting effective teaching strategies is crucial for the success of you as a teacher and your students. I don't think there's a successful teacher if they are not successful students. I don't think there are any successful students if there's not a very competent teacher there. Okay, so it goes hand by hand. Now, these are some research, these are some of the strategies that have proven to be very effective with culturally linguistically diverse students because they take into consideration everything that we said. And they help students in the process of acculturation, their cognitive learning skills, they take into consideration their learning styles, etc. These are some of the approaches that are used to get to the needs and of those students. Now, in your packages, you have 5 of them described. Okay, and what we were going to do, but I don't think we're going to have time, is to divide you in groups and practice something called the jigsaw. Okay, but I'm going to explain it to you because it's something you can use in your class. The jigsaw. Alright? And it's done like this. And maybe we do the first part so you get a flavor of what it is. The jigsaw is a cooperative learning strategy. What is cooperative learning? Do you know? It's one of these strategies that are here. What is cooperative learning? Yeah, but what's the difference between group work and cooperative learning? Do you know? Okay, but you can do that in a group work too. You can learn together and you can learn together and not be a cooperative group. What makes a group work cooperative? Do you know? Everybody has to work. That's one thing. Sometimes in a group work, you don't know if someone did or not work or did part of the job, no? In cooperative learning, every student has a very specific role that makes him essential for the rest of the work. That if he doesn't do his job, the rest is not done or it's not complete and everybody gets affected. So builds a lot of social skills, builds responsibility, and builds peer interaction, and builds cognitive skills, all right, and language skills. 80% of the language that our students acquire is learned by their peers. You can be the most wonderful teacher, but only 20% of that language is going to be learned by you. So if you become a facilitator, providing your students with opportunities, learning opportunities in groups, in cooperative learning groups especially, your students will be have an advantage. Now, the jigsaw is one of these cooperative learning strategies, and it goes this way. For example, you are divided already in how many groups? In 4? All right, 4 groups, no? So each group is going to become an expert group. An expert in one of these approaches. In your packages, you have a little selection of each approach that's 1 or 2 pages, all right? I want this group here, to choose one of these. Tell me one of these now. Multicultural education? Okay, good. So you're going to read what multicultural education is, okay? Just that first page. And you're going to tell us what is it, all right? You're responsible to teach everybody else what multicultural education approach is, all right? Now, what about this group? Choose one of the others.
Cooperative.
Cooperative learning. Okay, so you're responsible. Yeah, you're very smart now. Now, you're responsible to read that page and tell us what multicultural cooperative learning is. Now, which one are you going to choose? This group. Team teaching. All right, so you're responsible. You're the experts on team teaching. And you're going to read it for 10 minutes and you're going to tell us what it is. And what about you? Yes. Integrated language arts, okay? So look for it in your packages and tell us, I'm going to give you 10 minutes to read just the first page. All right? and tell us what is it. Okay? This is it, cooperative learning. All right? You're just going to read the first page, okay? Of each approach. I'm going to be passing a lot of different articles that you can take, okay? Okay, I'm not going to let you finish because we don't have time. But the process will be there, and I want you to go home and go and read through those. And it has an explanation of what it is, and I included ideas on how to put it into practice in your classroom right away. Okay, very basic ideas to start using them. Now, I am passing a lot of stuff, but I am passing competence for effective assessment and instruction of culturally and linguistically diverse learning. And let me tell you something very clear. Who you are and what you are makes the difference in a classroom. You are the decisive element, not the principal, not the superintendent, not the DASC, not the people who sit in the state board of education. You are the decisive element in your classroom. All right? And there's another paper that going around that talks about that. These are the competences that will help you to become what? More efficient. And this is an ideal. All right? I don't have all these competences yet. I'm still what? Learning, and I will be learning, hopefully, learning until I retire, okay? And even after that. But this is a good checklist for you. And to let you know which areas you have to be what? I have this. Oops, this one I have to work on, all right? So look at this when you can. Now, I gave you two. All right. Okay, I don't think they have this. I'm going to pass this. It's called, it's another strategy to use with your students called the KWL. What I know, what I want to know, and what I learned. All right? For example, I could use it with you. What do you know about bilingual education? What do you want to know about bilingual education? And at the end, we will go, what did you learn about bilingual education? It's a wonderful kind of activity to bring the prior knowledge of your students, bring and base your curriculum in your students' interests, and then check on students' comprehension. All right? And this will be done as a unit or as a lesson, whatever. You can do this when you start a new unit, and then guide you through the whole unit, answering the student questions. You can do this at the beginning, at the end of the lesson, whatever you want to do with it. All right, so this is another activity that you can do with your students. I pass you